Hey there, everyone. I'm AJ.
And I'm Carlos.
Welcome to the Roaming Minds podcast, your space for unpacking all things related to mental, cognitive, and neural health.
We're here to shift through the mass of information related to mental health and wellness. Think of us as your friendly guides, here to assist you in making actionable choices in your mental wellness journey.
Now, please understand, we are not doctors, psychologists, or therapists. We are just humans who are curious and have a passion for all things related to mental health, sharing what we've learned for informative purposes only.
Exactly. This isn't medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you're dealing with something serious, please hit up your doctor or mental health professional. Don't take our word for it.
Never skip out on expert help or put it off because of something we discussed here. If you need support right now, check the links in the description.
So buckle up, friends. Let's dive into today's convo and explore what's on our mind.
I don't want to say a complicated topic, but it's not a straightforward one, right? When we talk about like workplace mental health, we tend to think of stress, obviously overstressed, chronic more so than anything, right? Like, oh, I have this, and this to do. My goodness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that those are really like the two big ones that we kind of pay the most attention to, right? Or that get, maybe not that we pay the most attention to, but those are the two that we address the most because they're very much so like umbrella terms, right? Stress and chronic stress, we know, are two different things, right? Stress is good, stress is not bad. I mean, if I'm working out, my goal is to stress out the muscle so that it can grow bigger. That's not the end of the world. Chronic stress that lasts with you for a sustained period of time is very detrimental and is not good at all, right? But the big thing that then doesn't get, I think, discussed enough are more of the common issues that lead to these things. Overwork.
Mm-hmm.
I like this one a lot. Lack of psychological safety, because I think that takes a lot of different forms. It's not cut and dry. And then this idea of like unrealistic expectations, which I guess kind of could be lumped in with
Yeah, with
overwork.
the psychological.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all, I mean, if you want to get technical, we could probably lump all of it under lack of psychological safety. And there's so much that exists inside of lack of psychological safety. It's unnerving. Like there's so many nuances in there. And it's harder to diagnose when you're having mental health, depending on who you are, right? If you're like me, and I don't give a shit if I'm having problems at work. Shit's crazy. Like I have no problem telling you that. It's not going to affect my life, whether you know if I'm having issues at work or I'm not having issues at work. Maybe I am, whatever. But a lot of people, when it comes to those kinds of situations, right? It's work and they know it's work and it's a responsibility. And then that responsibility requires you to show up, right? That responsibility requires you to show up and to do whatever it is that you have to do each and every single day in spite of. And I did think a lot about this week, actually. This idea of, dude, we've talked about it, right? This idea of just keep going. And I'm not going to retract any statements that say just keep going, right? But I do want to amend that to say just keep going and work towards finding a solution. Because I always think there's, in most cases, right, there are solutions. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to find, but most cases have a solution to that. And if you just don't give up and you just keep going and you work towards finding that solution, chances are you're going to find it. Chances are you're going to make that happen, right? Now, none of those, right? None of that really, I guess it kind of ties in with psychological safety a little bit, right? Because again, you can, I mean, I'm going to give you an example and I'm not going to give you an example of mine, not because I have a problem talking with it, but because it's not pretty sure according to my contract that might go violate a few things. So, so this we'll take it hypothetical situation, right? You're working for a company, doesn't matter what it is. It can be anything from tech to pharmaceutical to shipping and logistics to whatever. And you have a boss that is mentally harassing, emotionally harassing, physically harassing, whatever. I would let's leave off physical actually, because physical is pretty obvious and easy to report. Mental and emotional is a whole lot more difficult to prove, right? So we'll focus on that one. You've tried, you've gone to HR, you've gone to different channels to be able to get help, but there's no clear, I mean, everyone has questions, right? But nobody has answers because there's not a clear channel or it's not a clear maybe it is clear definition of what it is that looks like, right? And so you're left to keep showing up, to keep enduring whatever it is that's going on, because at the end of the day, you've got responsibilities. You have bills to pay, you have people who are dependent upon you, and you don't have any option but to keep going. I mean, how do you handle that? That's hard. It's not easy. It's not something that I think we talk about at all. And I think it makes it even more difficult because there's so much knowledge out there now that this is fairly common.
That's the thing. It's hard, and I know the first thing that most people say when a person is in a situation like that is like, well, quit. If quit, but it's not that easy. You can't just because quitting involves you finding another job, and if you have a family, how are you going to pay the mortgage or the rent? If you have kids, how are your kids going to eat? If you have all these things, like how are you going to pay all these other things? And we know in America, most people live paycheck to paycheck, and some people are lucky enough to have savings where they can dip into that and work out a situation, but it's very hard. And the other thing that I want to point out is with emotional and mental stress, it can be very justifiable from the employer's point of view. Those type of behavior, they may not even see it, or they can even if they recognize that it is abuse or whatever where we want to attribute to it, they can easily justify it as into, well, I just want the work done, and it's about productivity and getting what needs to be done. How do you go against that system where if you tell people are like, well, if they don't even see it as what you are claiming it to be to begin with, like, how do you sometimes it makes people feel crazy. They're like, am I crazy? Am I overreacting? How are people not seeing what I'm trying to say or seeing?
Hmm. And I agree. And I'm going to come back to one point real quick, because I do think that this is a matter of increased access to knowledge, right? 30 years ago, the rates of identifying that something like this was wrong are going to be a whole lot lower. Just to give you an idea, and this is just a quick search. Surveys show that 19% of U.S. workers experienced abusive conduct at work in 2017 and 2021. In 2023, over 52% of U.S. employees reported witnessing or experiencing harassment or misconduct. 51% saw or faced bullying, 40% reported sexual harassment, and 30% faced racism or discrimination. But that's a big jump from 19 over 50. And so do I think that, in those 2 years that suddenly everybody just started
Harassing
being
people.
bullied? No, I don't think that's the case, right? I do think that social media, more access to these ideas and these concepts have definitely increased. Yes. Are some of these numbers probably padded because are there false claims? Certainly. I mean, they exist. It's going to be a thing, right? This is I mean, we've talked about this, right? Everybody's different. Some people perceive things differently. There's going to be all kinds of whatever. But it really is due to this rise of I think just mental health awareness in general, right? What things about what people need or want in order to be happy, in order to be fulfilled, all of that kind of information that is coming out and, ingraining themselves in people's lives. I mean, we were looking earlier and saw that, now more males are seeking therapeutic treatment, which is great. Personally, I never had that problem. But the fact that they are means that more people are being educated about what's harassment, what is bullying, what are these things. And so workplace mental health is going to be super duper important especially in the years to come. And I think just by talking about this means that the awareness is on the rise. So hopefully things will be done. So hope. Go for it.
Absolutely. And I think it's not only the awareness, but it's also what type of like abuse, what abuse looks like. Because I think for most of us, maybe I'm speaking for myself, when I think of abuse, I generally think of extremes and I don't think of like the middle and then the minor. So now that people are aware of the middle and the minor, so that also makes why those numbers have jumped up tragically. Because if like before only the severe cases are getting reported, now people are more aware of maybe don't say that. Don't if before people are like, well, he grabbed my butt and then reported that, but now they're like, well, you shouldn't be saying that to me, and they're not reporting it. It's the awareness of and people being educated on what is right and what is wrong, and how to look for that and how to proceed forward with it.
Yeah, it is super difficult. And that's why I think just to get this out of the way, and then we'll kind of talk about some things that are happening in the workplace. If you think that something is going on, if you are feeling psychologically unsafe at work, the best thing that you can do in the immediacy, number one, obviously go seek help. You can use any of the resources in our description to go find help. But then on top of that, just begin documenting everything as it happens, right? Because that documentation is going to be what ultimately gets you out of everything. I think about it, one of the common things in terms of like workplace harassment is constantly being asked to justify your job, even though you're doing your job well. So having that documentation is going to be helpful when you're trying to prove, hey man, like this is harassment. You asked me to hit this goal, this goal, this goal, and this goal. I hit all four, yet you're still telling me that there's something wrong with performance. So there's something that you're kind of looking for, whatever, that isn't going on. And so the only thing that I have to go on that is documentation. So if you feel like you are experiencing any sort of thing like this, find the necessary means for help. If it's for your psychological being, therapists, like I said, we have the descriptions for the crisis lines and things like that, and support in finding therapists and documentation. Those are your two biggest defenders against something that's going on right now. So that being said, I do kind of want to shift focus, not to be all doom and gloom and be like, oh my God, this is so terrible. It is terrible. It really is. It's horrible. And if you're experiencing it, I am sorry. And I hope that you realize it, have the awareness, find it, document it, and take the necessary actions from there, because it's not fun. The cool thing is that there are some trends that are happening in terms of mental health in the workplace that I think are worth mentioning, right? We have this idea of micro mental health videos that are happening. These things are kind of neat. They're short, clinically vetted videos that are being used at some companies just to offer small little tidbits that's confidential that just get employees to kind of engage in wellness content. That's cool because it's increasing that awareness. It's helping you out with knowledge. That's a big plus. This is kind of, if employers are providing you with content for your mental well-being, it's never going to be a bad thing. It's never going to be like, well, your employer sucks for giving you that mental health support, son of a bitches. Some are offering unlimited PTO is like a big shift towards that. I know it's not common at all companies and whatever, we can argue that, whatever, but I think that was like the beginning kind of shift towards, and let's call it what it is. Like if I need a mental health day, I can just be like, oh hey, I'm gonna work from home. I'm not going to go be around people for today, whatever. I mean, the concept of mental health day has been around for quite a while. I know I was taking them when I got out of high school, even when I was in high school, I think I was taking mental health days from work because working at a restaurant sucks. The shift towards 4-day work weeks is also a big one. One of the things that I've seen at some tech companies is hybrid work schedules. So 3 days in office, 2 days out, which can help because it just reduces that stress level, those cognitive loads, because you can interact with your family a little bit more. It may break those kinds of things up. Some of the other big one is peer-led mental health support, which is cool. I'm all for the peer groupings, right? Because I think it's highly effective in managing stress, and having that social connection is really important. But I guess the question becomes, well, is that enough? Is it enough to provide you with mental wellness content? Is it enough to give you a 4-day work week? For me, I'll tell you, 4-day work week would be one of the most amazing things. I don't think that'll. Somebody said this to me a long time ago. I don't think anybody was laying on their deathbed and like, man, I should have worked more.
Actually, like, maybe there's that one weird person out there. We will not generalize all dead 10 billion dead people that have gone through the history
Sure.
of Earth. Maybe there's that one person, but nobody that I know, that most people know, has ever said that.
Right. It's not a big.
It's not a big regret that people
No,
have.
no, no. It's not a common regret that you hear people, and I really should have done that. Typically, they tend to revolve around social
Yeah. It's like,
regrets, right?
I wish I had gone into work on every Saturday of my life. No.
Yeah, right. Right. And so it kind of brings up this idea of who's responsible for your mental wellness. Is your employer or is it you? And I think that the answer lies in both. Employers play a role, right?
Yes.
And so do you, because there are things that you can do. Let's say you have a normal job, and I shouldn't say normal, but like you're working a job where you don't experience harassment, bullying, all kinds of things like that. You're just working a job that you don't maybe feel fulfilled in. It's not tied to your purpose, that, whatever the case may be. Then is it on your employer to make sure that providing you with mental health resources? Then it's really going to be upon you to handle that mental health and to figure out what you need to do in order to get back to a state of wellness and well-being. If you're working at something that makes you feel unfulfilled and you're going back, you have to figure out what it is, that purpose then there is. And I'm dicey because this is a weird gray area, because I'm never going to say, well, you should just quit. I can't. Nobody can tell you that. Your situation could be where you can't because you need the income.
Yeah, because just from personal experience, I know people in certain situations where could they quit? Yes, but them quitting has more drastic effect on literally how their life will go than them unfortunately just sticking through and going with what they have to.
Yes. And that's a big problem with dealing with mental health issues at work, because I would love to be able to tell everybody, hey, just go walk in there, say, hey, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. But when you have a mortgage and your kid needs to eat and other things of that nature, you can't just say, well, I quit because I don't feel like I'm being fulfilled here. So with that out of the way, right, let's kind of highlight.
Sorry, just before there is a balance between like you feeling fulfilled and there is something actively going on at the work. So there could be nothing going on at your job and you're not feeling fulfilled. You could just have a
Mhm.
perfectly okay job. There is no your bosses and the environment around you is as okay as it can be, and
Mhm.
you're still not feeling fulfilled.
Yeah.
That is something that you have to work within yourself and figure out what you
Right.
need from life,
Right.
versus where you're not feeling fulfilled because you like the job and you like what you're doing, but the environment or the people working around you or the people you are working for are creating a situation where you are not feeling fulfilled in your life because of that external choice and not necessarily from that internal one.
Yes, it's not. That's why I say it can't always be on one side. It's got to be both, because you as a human need to be aware of what's going on with you to be able to make the decisions that you need to make. I mean, if you're not fulfilled at work and it's not great, if you're aware and you're kind of paying attention and you're a relatively healthy individual, well, then there's a simple answer, and the simple answer is to begin the process of looking for new employment. It may not be, and that process is going to look different for everybody because it depends on what your career is, where you're at in your career journey. Again, coming back to that idea of personalization, right? Where you are at is going to decide exactly what steps you need to take, but having that awareness that it needs to happen is what's going to get you to take those necessary actions. So if I'm looking for a career shift, well, it may be time to go get a certification, start learning about the career that it is that I want to start happening. And after reading that blog, I really hate saying career shift. We were talking about it before, that Seth Godin's project, experiencing work as a series of projects rather than a career. I know personally that's how my trajectory has kind of made it, just because there are been different stages for everything. But I mean, I think career help is that's a whole nother topic that I don't know that I mean, we could talk about that entirely in and of itself. But you have to pay attention to what's going on with you in order to be able to accept responsibility, to be able to go ahead and do those things about it. Don't blame anybody else. When I say that everybody has a responsibility, ultimately taking that idea from, I don't know if you ever read Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. Basically the claim is that whatever happens to you is your fault. I'm not out here to agree or disagree.
Yeah.
What I'm telling you is it's a very powerful concept. If you take responsibility for everything that happens, you have the ability to change it. If you don't have the ability to change it. That's wherein lies the problem. So, yes, there are things employers can do. Yes, there are things that you should definitely do. But above all, it is take responsibility for what it is that you need to do. So that then brings up this kind of, maybe I'm saying this the wrong way. But before you agree to work for somebody, do your research. Go talk to some people who work there. Find out what it's like. Don't just willingly accept a job just because they're like, well, hey, we'll pay you 150 grand a year or more. Nowadays, some of the salaries that I see are just, I'm mind boggled by that. I know some of the AI researchers. Have you seen some of that? Just stupid amounts of money, but it's none of it's worth it if it's horrible to work for. So
That's the thing. What is the price you are willing to, for people who are making a lot of money in their job and are experiencing this? If you are making minimum wage and experiencing this, different discussion for you. But if you're making $1 million and you're like, I'm making $1 million a year,
mhm.
but I am dealing with a tyrant or dealing with just horrible actions and behaviors every day.
Mhm.
What is the $1 million worth it to you that much that you are willing to stick through it with it? And I was gonna say the one word that keeps that we might hit on is compare.
It's not just me.
What? It's like it's in here, but I can't say it.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Their demalization. God, I'm not saying that.
Compartmentalization.
That
Yeah.
word. Too
Mm-hmm.
many
Yeah.
syllables.
Yeah. No, trust me. I'm aware.
How are you willing to, separate yourself from the job and be like, look, it's just a job and I just need to go in there,
Mm-hmm.
do what I need to do, and then leave and be able to separate yourself from that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens in a lot of situations is whatever you experience at work seeps into your personal life, and
Mm-hmm.
then your whole entire life becomes this issue that you are dealing with. Like I've known people who are dealing with things at work, and that things slowly start impacting them.
Mm-hmm.
Then they start impacting their health, and they just spiral. And now their whole actual life is going down in spiral because of something that started at work. So Are you willing? Are you that type of person who could be like, okay, I'm gonna walk in here, do my thing, and it's gonna be bad. But I'm the moment I leave at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever time
Hmm.
you leave, I can just turn on that switch and be like, I'm leaving that all behind, and I'm gonna go on with my life.
Yeah. No, while you were talking, I thought of another book. I'm on a roll today. I'm like, yeah, I remember everything that I read recently.
He reads, guys.
Book
He
called
reads books.
right? It was a book called Build by Tony Fadell. He was an Apple engineer or designer, one of the two. I forget exactly which, during the Steve Jobs era. And he founded what's it called? That thing that we all have in our house that I can't think of off the top of my
Alexa.
head right now. No, the other one, Nest, the thermostat. They were building Nest, and he had this. It's really cool because in the book he kind of talks about how he had this whole entire ecosystem plan. And he's like, well, we sold the company to Google for some obscene amount of money. And he was like, but we didn't research the culture at all. And their culture didn't mesh with our culture. And it wasn't conducive to anything. And now, I mean, Nest is really just a thermostat. It's not an like that vision never became because of not conducting enough research to see what he was getting. I mean, and he says it in there. It's not, I'm not trying to psychoanalyze anything. He's like, this is literally what happened. I hated it. It was awful. And that's obviously I don't want to say an extreme example, but it's not a common example. It's not like everyone's going out and selling companies in the next 20 minutes, but everybody is looking for an employer. And so doing due diligence and understanding what your employer is, what they have to offer is really, really important. I mean, you can say that you have employee assistance, but if nobody's doing it, that's great. You can have an HR department, that's wonderful. But if your HR department is fucked, it's not going to make a big deal. I remember I was working for a very large company in one of their warehouses, and I had tweaked something, and it wasn't a workman's comp claim. And I talked to the supervisor, and I was like, hey, I'm in between health insurance. I have a week. I'm getting it back, right? Like it's coming. I just don't have it right now. I'm just asking for assistance for 7 days, okay? 7 days. I mean, we're not talking a lifetime. I have done so much for this company and then some, right? And so I'm sitting there and talking to HR, working things out, and this lady looked me dead in the eyes and said, we'll see what we can do, but sometimes the needs of the company outweigh the needs of the individual. And I was like, this bitch.
Like when you're saying that, the first thing that I think when you are at a job, the job, their goal is profits. Not you are not even maybe like in the top thing. Employees are not even in the top 10 things that that company wants. It's the job, the customers. It's a lot of other people before you. So you have to get that setting a mentality. Be like, okay, if I'm not the priority, who's gonna prioritize me?
Yeah.
Myself.
Hmm. Yes. And that's why I say ultimately the best thing that you can do is that idea of extreme ownership and knowing what you're getting into, doing the best. I mean, obviously you can't make this just a blanket term because again, right, if I'm out of work and I need a job and I need income right away, I'm I may not spend as much time doing something like that. And I may accept an offer that isn't the greatest in the world, and I may get stuck doing something that I don't want to be doing. And so being proactive as much as possible, in order to be proactive, we must have the awareness first. Because if we don't know what we want, if we don't know what we need, then we can't begin to vet out those companies and things like that. Now, that being said, there are definitely things that employers can do. You can make sure that you're setting clear workload expectations. I expect this amount of, maybe not this amount, I expect this by this day, and it should ideally be reasonable. I know for a little bit, they were throwing out like Musk's shoot for the moon, but fall in the stars idea. If you give yourself 2 weeks to do it, you might get it done in 2 weeks, but you might not. Chances are you won't. But if you give yourself 3 days to do it and you don't make 3 days, that's okay. You're probably a hell of a lot further in those 3 days than you did in 12 weeks. And I don't disagree with that method. As long as there is a clear understanding that there's not a small chance in hell that we are solving some of the greatest challenges of mankind in 3 days. Do you see what I mean? Like, I think that that's very like, it's a strong startup mentality. And I also think that it's a strong tool when used correctly, but everybody's got to be on board for that. And there has to be those, again, clear expectations. I don't believe that you should work 13, 14, 15, 16 hours to be able to make that happen in 3 days. There's no way. Our goal is to get it done in 3 days. We're going to sit down, we're going to buckle down, we're going to work through, and we're going to push and just grind it out for the 8 hours a day. I can get behind that. But again, the expectation is clear. I can move and keep going.
The thing is, with like, if employers have clear expectations, then you know what you're getting yourself into. You're like, this is what they've laid out. I can either agree to it, or you'd be like, you know what, thank you, but this is not for me. I'm gonna go somewhere else. But if expectations are not clearly laid out, and then there's this weird things that happen where you're not supposed to work Saturday, but now all of a sudden your boss is hitting you up on a Saturday being like, hey, can you get this done? And you're like, I was in the office Monday through Friday, did what I was supposed to do. This time is for me, and now you are hitting me up with this. What? Why? What's going on?
Right. Yeah. And typically in established and traditional companies, you may have some level of that depending on what level you're at. The places where this is not going to apply in the slightest is startups. Because when this shit hits the fan,
all hands on deck.
But again, that expectation is usually pretty clear because the people who go work in startups know that this is what they're getting into. They understand that it's not always just 5 days a week. Sometimes it's six.
I think because again, there are clear expectations with
right.
the startup, because everybody knows
yes.
we are trying to build something, and when you're building some things, some things will start crumbling, and we will need all hands on deck at any time.
Mm-hmm.
And we will to kind of push the pieces back together. But if you're an established place and you tell me I'm supposed to be doing this and that's the contract I signed, we've been doing that, and then slowly, as you know, after my orientation, I'm there for a month, and now you start throwing things at me that are not really what I'm supposed to be doing, then yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think I'm just looking at our notes, and access to therapy is interesting. I would venture out to say that most employers, with the exception of probably like restaurants, there are definitely like employers that aren't going to do these things because they're like smaller, they're not massive conglomerates like small business, things like that, are probably not like providing access to therapy. But if you're working for like a big company or any established company, chances are, because I know even that was over a decade ago, I know for a fact that when I worked for a big name retail company, that not what you would expect, they provided access to therapy. The problem is not the access to therapy, it's getting people to use it. And that's not easy. That's why I love that idea of the micro mental health videos, because that'll at least increase the awareness and increase the likelihood of you seeking out that treatment in the long term. Go for it.
I was gonna say, it's not for like companies. It's not only having the resources available or telling people you can use it. What leeways or policies are there for it not to feel punitive to use it? Because sometimes companies will have, therapies and mental health think strategy set up, but if you use it, it's a punitive thing because we'll dock you a day's pay, or you'll have to, or insurance or things like that. So how do you go about a not being available for people to use, but also not being a punitive thing for the employee?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting idea and concept. At least when it comes to like mental health treatment, I've never experienced that. Because even that major retailer, like they wanted you to use it. I genuinely believe like they would They would tell us about it. Even in my oh sorry, even in my role now, I know we have access to things like that, but
I
it's
think I'm coming
not.
from I think I'm coming from a small because I typically have worked for like smaller businesses, so I
Mhm.
think that's where my specific example and experience is coming from.
No, and that's a good. I like the perspective. It's a hard thing to determine at that point because I can't say I've ever been through that. Like they've always been very good about things like that, but again, it's just using it. It's not, I think about it this way, it's not very user friendly. It's not user friendly for me to go and hunt down a whole bunch of information to try and figure out how to make use of that benefit. And I guess even in your case, it boils down to bad user experience. Ultimately is what we can kind of chalk that up to. The way that it is integrated, the way that it is presented, the way that it is given needs to be in a manner that is relatively easy to consume and ingest, because if it isn't, and I mean, let's say I'm in the middle of some sort of crisis, the last thing I'm going to do is go read about the employee's assistance package, whatever, and try and figure out how I can go make use of this benefit. I don't want to call anybody. I don't want to talk to them. I just want to get the benefit. um, maybe that's really it, like simplifying the process of getting access to therapy. We have here, I don't love this one, wellness stipends. And it's like, well, what is that? It's such a hard thing to entail. I mean, I like the idea of access to gyms and things like that. That's a big one. And I think that that to me would fall under something like a wellness stipend.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, I guess, hey, why not? That one's going to be a harder sell. And I don't think as many people are going to have that right off the break. To me, it would be more conducive to have X amount of days, basically personal days, extended personal days for mental health purposes. That to me would be more worth it than having money to go spend. Chances are I'm already getting paid halfway decent if I'm at a company with a wellness stipend.
Well, I think maybe with the wellness type, and maybe it's not necessarily money you're getting back, but with your contract, you get a gym membership. You get with your insurance card, you get the for like I don't know 5 sections with a therapist is free at the cost of the company, not on you or your whether you get insurance through the
Mm-hmm.
company or some other private insurance, not at the cost of that. I think there is something there, not necessarily because what if you don't use it throughout the year? Do you get that money back? Does the company retain that money? Then it becomes like, how does that
Yeah,
look?
I agree with you. And I think our last one really, well, not last one, but this last one really makes a big difference is encouraging breaks and boundaries. Don't encourage it's if you don't encourage those things, it doesn't really matter what you're doing. Ultimately, you can get burnout from doing pretty much anything. It doesn't matter if you love what it is that you're doing. There's some aspect of the work in there that is gonna mess with you.
It's human nature. After, even if you love it, after a while, like you're just like this again. Like you're like
Mhm.
I have to go do this again. So it is just part of the natural process of things.
I mean, I love what we do. I love building software. I love doing all of those things. But there are certain aspects of it that drive me absolutely insane. And so when I have to do more of those aspects that drive me nuts, I have a much higher chance of experiencing that burnout. And that's terrible. Like it's not even worth it. So having breaks, having boundaries is super important. I mean, no matter what, if you have somebody that works all the time and works super hard, eventually they're going to burn out and it's not going to go well for you because their performance is going to deteriorate. And what's going to happen is that chances are they'll probably make a larger mistake than what you're willing to account for. This next idea is one of my favorites. Psychological safety as a core leadership skill. Now, that's a topic. It's dicey because everybody needs to feel safe, but as much as I mean, I say that with the utmost care and enthusiasm and the understanding that some people require more than others. That being said, in a workplace situation, you are entering into an agreement of sorts, a contract, whatever you want to call it. And it can't just be a one-sided kind of thing. It can't be a, oh, well, I don't need to do work today because I don't feel safe, or whatever, right? Do you see what where I'm trying to kind of go? There has to be,
Absolutely.
I hate the word standard because I don't like that. But again, I think it just goes back to clear expectations, and maybe not just in terms of workload, but having those clear expectations as well. Anybody in a leadership position should be encouraged to learn how to talk to people in a manner that is respectful, decent, and healthy. There are things you are going to get reprimanded for. I'm sure you're going to make a mistake, and that is what it is. You can't just be like, oh, I don't feel safe anymore because I did something no. But at the same time, people who are in that situation have to learn how to speak with respect and decency and dignity, and not take things personal. It can't become this personal vendetta out against, whether you like them, love them, hate them, any of it. You need to learn some of those skills, because there are ways to talk to people that are easy and friendly, that do not encourage or convey any sort of hostility. And I think that is really more so the key, is not conveying hostility. I'm not telling you it's easy, but it is something that everybody should have training for and should be working on if you are in a leadership role.
Mm-hmm.
That's my take on that. Everything that I do when it comes to working with others, I try to leave the hostility out of it. It's not perfect.
I think employers should create, everybody deserves psychological safety. It should be a safe environment. But for employers, it doesn't mean when you do something wrong or when there's a problem, it doesn't mean there's not going to be consequences, or I don't want to use the word retaliation. Retaliation is bad, but I guess consequences to whatever is the result of your behavior. But back to employer, it's again the old adage. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Because you can convey the same message in an aggressive tone and just belittling and awful tone to somebody, and you get that across, but then that doesn't get you anywhere, because either what's going to happen is the person is going to either leave because they're like, okay, you were fucking nuts for talking to me like that, or they're just not going to be as productive as they once were. Versus if you talk to them in a respectful manner, you explain to them what happened, and it's detailed, people will be like, okay, I understand. I see where you're coming from, and there's a way for discussion, because you don't know. Maybe there's something going on, and they can give you insight into their life, and then you can be like, okay, I understand. I see where you're coming from, and how do we move on forward from here? Versus if you just go in attack mode, fully just yelling, it doesn't resolve anything, and at best, they just take it in and they just say, okay, I'll just improve, or you might lose out on a good employee, and now you have to start all over again.
I think what I hear you saying is seeking to understand rather than to be understood. And I think as a leader, you kind of, you have to, because it's not a matter of you understanding me. If I've made my expectations and everything else clear, and you are not operating within those guidelines, I have I have a responsibility to inform you that you are not meeting expectations. Now, I need to understand why in order to fix that problem. If you're a beneficial enough, if this is like the third or fourth time that we've had that conversation, you're just gonna be like, look, this just isn't working out. We're gonna have to turn, you know what I mean? But there doesn't have to be this like, God, you're the worst, and it doesn't. There's no hostility required in order to understand where somebody is coming from. And it's just not, that's why I say everybody just needs to be trained along those lines, because if they are, everything just goes so much smoother. The other thing I was thinking about was people do need to feel valued. They do need to feel like they are contributing to something meaningful. They need to feel like the work that they're doing is being valued. I didn't want to use that term, but they need to feel like what they're doing is being appreciated. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. If they don't, again, this just causes issues. So ensuring leadership training is a big thing for what can an employer do. Without jumping too much. I do just kind of want to wrap things up. We talked about stress and chronic stress versus stress a little bit. We just hit on it. Really, our bulk focus was on burnout and what that can kind of lead to. We talked a lot about feeling psychologically safe at work and what to do about that if you do not, how different scenarios can impact that psychological safety, because it's not a one size fits all. It is very much so dependent on the person and what they are going through. We talked about a couple of very minimal about the statistics of workplace harassment that seems that I'm going to venture out and say has to do with rise of awareness, rise of information. And then we talked about employees versus employers' responsibility. And employees' responsibility is really that extreme ownership of, I need to know what is okay for me. I need to have my ducks in a row. And then the employer is really just about creating a space where everything is clear and well defined and people are trained appropriately is effectively what we kind of went over. And again, if you are struggling with a workplace issue, please seek help, whatever that may be, whether that's mention it again, the link's in the description, whether that's talking to somebody, a buddy, whether that's talking to a professional, just start taking action, because it's miserable. It really sucks to have to go to a job that is causing you distress. That's all we have for today. Thanks for hanging out with us on Roaming Minds.
Carlos here with a friendly reminder, your mind's worth it.
If you enjoyed our conversation and want to learn more, hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening. Spotify, Apple, whatever works for you. Maybe even drop us a review if you're feeling extra kind. If you're the social media type, come find us on Instagram at roaming_minds_pod. We've got updates, behind the scenes bonuses, all that good stuff.
Catch us next week for another ADHD-filled adventure, chasing life, liberty, and whatever shiny idea grabs us next.